Hello guys, in this video we're going to review how to graph a line. So this should all look familiar from Algebra 1. So in this first form, slope-intercept form, remember that's y equals mx plus b. Also remember that m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. So when I graph something in this form, notice that this is my example and I have 1/2 is my slope and 1 is my y-intercept. So when I graph in this form, I'm going to start actually with the y-intercept because that's going to be my starting point. So 1 is my y-intercept, that's the point 0, 1. And I'm going to put a dot on 0, 1. And then I'm going to use my slope to count my rise over run. So I'm going to count up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. And then remember you can go backwards too. I can count down 1 to the left 2, and so on. So I'm just using the y-intercept and the slope to get some points, and then I'm going to connect them. And I've graphed my line. Now if I ask you to label some points, then you could label the y-intercept really easily. That would be 0, 1. And let's just say I label this next point that I got by counting my rise over run. That would be 2, 2. In this next form, we have standard form. This is the form that looks like ax plus by equals c, or notice that x and y are on the same side. So with this form, it's easier to graph this by finding the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And the way we do that is we plug in 0 for the x in order to find the y-intercept. So if I plug in 0 for the x, I get some number for y. And I do the opposite for the y. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y and find the x-intercept. So 0 for the y, here's some number for the x. So here's our example. I have 3x minus 2y equals 6. So first thing we're going to do is plug in 0 for the x. And you see how I've done that. Now when I do 3 times 0, that just gives me 0. So I essentially just have negative 2y equals 6. And if you might have been taught the cover-up method, and you would cover up this part and you just look at the negative 2y equals 6. Well, that's why. When you cover it up, it's because you plugged in 0. So if I solve this for y, then I get y equals negative 3, and that is my y-intercept. So this is the point that I'm going to be graphing. So let me graph that real quick. So 0, negative 3. That's that point right there. Okay, so then we got to do the same thing for the opposite variable. So now I'm going to plug in 0 for the y right there. And if I do negative 2 times 0, that's just 0, and that goes away. So I have 3x equals 6, and then I'm going to solve for x. Oh, hang on, you can't see that. Let me move this. All right, so we get x equals 2. So my x-intercept is 2, 0. So again, if I asked you to label some points, and these would be the easiest 2 points to label. All right, and then I'm just going to connect those. And we've got our line. So now let's talk about graphing a line that looks like this. Y equals 3. Notice that these don't look like any of those forms we were just talking about because it doesn't have an x variable. And the reason it doesn't have an x variable is because no matter what the x coordinate is, the y coordinate is always 3. And that's what this means. So for example, some points that would be on this line are negative 5, 3, 0, 3, 2, 3. Notice all of the y coordinates are 3, and it doesn't matter what the x coordinate is. So if I plot those, so let me move this down a little bit so we can see. So I've got negative 5, 3, 0, 3, and 2, 3. So you see all of those lines make that horizontal line. Okay, so I'm going to connect those. So anytime you have y equals some number, it's going to come out to be a horizontal line, and that is because of what that means. Now, on the other hand, you could have an equation that only has one variable, and that variable is x. So let's say we have an equation like this. Notice that there is no y in the equation. So what that means is no matter what the y coordinate is, the x coordinate is always -4. So for example, I could have -4, -3, -4, 0, and -4, 5. Those would all be on my line. And what that's going to do is make a vertical line. So let's plot those points that I have there. -4, -3. So that's right here. And then -4, 0. And then -4, 5. So if I connect those, you can see I've got a vertical line. So that's just a quick review of how to graph lines, and we'll be using that in our lessons next time.